In traditional 9 to 5 jobs, the reality is that we trade our most valuable, non-renewable asset, which is our time, to make somebody else's dream come true, to bring somebody else's vision to reality. Now, this trade might be a good bargain if we're enjoying the work. We find the work challenging and rewarding at the same time. We like our boss, and the value of the company matches our own values. But the reality that's devastating is that only about 1/3 of employees find themselves engaged in their work, and the rest of them are actually quietly quitting. And I know the devastating feeling that comes from quiet quitting, that meaninglessness. I was there. I'm Mehrnaz, and I'm a former biotech scientist. And I followed the formula that I was fed by my parents, teachers, society to the T. I got a graduate degree. I got a master's degree in organic chemistry. I got a job in biotech, which was supposed to be highly rewarding and high pay. And I was planning to stay until retirement so that I could accumulate enough money to enjoy my time after I stopped working. But it didn't take very long for the cracks to appear, the Sunday night dreads, the pit in my stomach on Monday mornings, and the nagging thought of, is this really it? Is this what I worked so hard for? But because I'd followed what everybody else said was the right path, it was difficult for me to see any other option for myself. And when you voice your concern about your work, usually the advice that you get is change your job or go on your own and create something for yourself. Now, the first option was easier because in order to follow the second option, I would have had to rethink. I would have had to change my operating system because up to that point, I was fed the notion that somebody else was going to give me the opportunities. Somebody else was going to give me a raise and help me make a living for myself. So in order to all of a sudden go from that employee mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset, it was a huge jump. And it was too big of a jump for me to do that. So I chose changing the job. And I did. I changed companies. I went to a bigger company that offered me higher pay. But it didn't take very long for that feeling of meaninglessness and dread to come back again. So I knew no matter how many times I jumped jobs, that feeling wasn't going to leave me because the problem wasn't the job. It was actually the 9 to 5. I wasn't meant to work as an employee. I wasn't meant for the 9 to 5 conventional working environments, which at the time made me feel like there was something wrong with me because I would see all my friends and they seemed to be doing okay at their jobs, and they didn't necessarily love their jobs, but they seemed to be doing fine, making the income and enjoying their weekends. It didn't feel like anybody else was struggling the way I was struggling, so there must have been something wrong with me. That's the thought that I had. So I realized that the only option I had was to actually change the operating system in my mind and actually start to make my own opportunities. I knew that I was a hard worker. It looked like I was just following the wrong path. I started to set stepping stones from being a full-time employee to then stepping into entrepreneurship. I knew I couldn't do it in one jump. It was way too much of a gap. And today, I've created a framework called Free Framework. I teach other people to create those stepping stones that I created for myself to help me go from employee mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset. The stage 1 of the Free Framework involves going from a full-timer, thinking like a full-timer, to that of a rebel. And the point of doing this is to break free from the conditioning that we have to be good, we have to follow rules, we have to follow directions so that we will be rewarded. And this conditioning is so strong because it's been fed to us ever since we were young. In school, We had to be good. We had to study. We had to listen. And again, it was reinforced in the workplace. And the only way to break it is to start thinking like rebels, start working against the system that actually created this conditioning in the first place. So some of the things I did was to create micro rebellions in my life. I started to go up the escalator that was coming down without worrying about what other people thought or said. I started to say no to quick favors. Doesn't matter if it was friends or family or even a boss. I started to not pay tip unless the service was good. And all of these, you'll notice that we are so conditioned to abide by and follow that once you start to let go and not follow them, it will create feelings of shame, guilt, and it feels really terrible inside. But you're not doing anything wrong. Who came up with the idea that we had to be available for our bosses, often at the expense of our own well-being? And these micro rebellions are not big rebellions that's going to get us fired or demote us from being somebody's friend. They're just ways for us to start thinking differently. And thinking differently consistently starts rewiring our brains, creates a different operating system. Stage 2 of the free framework, we then go from a rebel to an experimenter. In this stage, life becomes our laboratory. And curiosity is favored over permission. So instead of waiting for opportunities, we start experimenting with going after opportunities. So some of the things you can do is to start speaking out in your work meetings. Doesn't matter if your voice is shaky, doesn't matter if you speak quietly. The results don't matter. It doesn't matter whether you get the thing you're asking for. What is important is that you bring yourself to actually asking or contributing or voicing your opinion. That's what's more important than the result you get or what people will think of you. Because as you do that more and more, you're rewiring your brain into realizing that it's actually safe for you to speak up. It's safe for you to voice your opinion, be yourself. Another thing you can do is to DM an influencer in your field, introduce yourself, and ask them a question. Again, it doesn't matter whether they respond to you or not. What's important is that you went against the doubt, the voice in your head. You went against that resistance and you made it happen. That's more important than whatever outcome you're going to get out of those experiments. And another thing you can do as an experiment is to actually create a micro offer that matches your skills and email your friends and family and start offering that at nighttime or over the weekend. So what I mean by that is I actually started to tutor. I had a science background, so I have strong knowledge of sciences and math. So I used that, the skill that I already had, didn't need to go back to school for, and I packaged it into tutoring sessions. I charged $20 an hour, and I got a few students through referrals. Again, this is a way for you to experiment with life to see what other options are available and to make yourself realize that you're not stuck in your 9 to 5. There are other options. Then in stage 3, when you go from an experimenter to an entrepreneur, you already have the mindset. So you're already thinking creatively. You're already imagining possibilities. So the ideas of entrepreneurship come to you easier and faster. It's no longer terrifying for you to think differently. It's actually rewarding. You've seen some results. You've realized that nothing bad's going to happen to you. You are safe in going against the crowd. You've already proven all that to yourself once you step into stage 3. And this is how you rewire yourself and allow yourself to go from a full-timer to an entrepreneur using a couple of stepping stones of a rebel and an experimenter. Your current wiring keeps you alive, keeps you safe, but it's not the way to your freedom. In order to get to your freedom, you need to start imagining things. You need to start living a life that doesn't exist yet. You are just starting to imagine it into existence. The minute you glimpse into that possibility and use the free framework, you can bring that daydream into now a roadmap that you can use to bring that possibility into reality. When it comes to creating micro offers, it can be hard to have awareness of our skills that actually other people need and they need help with. So I've created the 3 side hustle idea generator that you can use to brainstorm ideas for a side hustle that you can package into a micro offer in your experimentations. So if that is useful for you, I will put that in the comments. And what I want to leave you with in this video is pursue what brings you alive, one small rebellion at a time. Thank you so much for watching this. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and I will see you next time.